You guys keep on mentioning U2, and why are they considered a rock band and you guys are always get the boy band label?
I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know. It's a question I have for you.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the answer.
I don't know.
The reality is, so it's
Sexism?
incredibly...
Yeah, exactly.
No,
the
chick from Hanson can't be in a rock
No, it's about our audience.
No.
Yeah.
It's about our... I mean, in all seriousness,
I think so.
like, all this commentary about equality, blah, blah, blah. But if you have an audience full of screaming girls...
You're a boy band.
The music industry says...
Your pop.
Credibility is questioned. Right? The Beatles, it took them making the record that all the boyfriends bought, Sgt. Pepper's, to get credibility. I mean, in all seriousness, and I'm not even like a get on the pedestal about that subject, but it's actually, I think it's kind of true.
It is sexist.
And it's totally sexist.
Actually.
But it is also, I think, it is the nature of pop music. Popular music causes all of us to question it first. Like, if it's really, 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 really popular, you kind of go, well, how credible is it, right? It's easy to, like, the weird documentary about, like, this odd subject matter in this corner of the world is immediately, if you know about it at all, it must be because it's credible, because it's certainly not popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I also think, we'll just cross our fingers, because, I mean, I think time is the thing that kind of, shall we say, heals all wounds in some way or another. I mean, who we are is who we've always been and who we will always be. We have, for all the things that have changed, and there are many things that have, I think we're a lot more consistent than we are not. And I think we've been a band who writes about, working through the rough times. And yes, we do write about love, but actually it's not in the way that people might think, and I think it's we're just a band of songwriters, a band of guys who really like writing songs and just so happen to be able to play and sing in a way that we feel good about the results.
When you wrote Mbop, did you know already from the start there was going to be a hit?
I don't think you can ever predict anything.
You know as much as you thought all your other songs would be a hit because you like all the songs you write because you...
Yeah, you have a certain amount of confidence in all your songs because you write them. So I think we just more had a confidence in just the band.
And the music and we knew that we wanted to do it. And we still want to do it. And we're going to keep doing it. And that's really the confidence that you have, not in what song's going to do what, or because you don't know, but just the fact that you're always going to keep doing it.
The heart of this band is to be creating things and to be inventing things and to be excited about the future. We started a record company, on our third album before I was 20 years old. We have put out 6 major studio albums. We have a global fan base that we still tour with all the time, year after year. We chose to start our record company because we could see that there wasn't a future at a major label that was focused on quarterly earnings and sort of stacking artists like assets that they could just trade. And really the decision in starting a record company was about whether we were invested in our own future or whether we were going to really just become a commodity. We set up a distribution deal, built a new team with a new management company and did a lot of stuff that nobody had any idea how to do.
For the relatively young ages that you are, there's a lot of depth in what you say and what you do. Where does that come from?
I think it doesn't really matter what age you are and
any of that. That's not what it's about at all. I mean, we always say, judge us by our music, not by our age, because it's not about how old or young or whatever you are. It's about the music you make, and it's about where it comes from, and it's about the songs.
I guess it's the point that, no matter what age you are, you have the same feelings.
I've always said, think of us as old guys with high voices.
Yeah.
And we had that local band work ethic that was, hey, if nobody else is going to do this, like, we're going to have to make it. We're going to have to, we can't get the gig inside the bar, so we're going to talk to the bar owner and see if they'll let us play on the porch. And so we would get a crowd to come around to the outside deck where we were able to stand and perform. And that spirit of building it, by your own hands and really caring about the details is probably why we decided to start a record company and why we've
started a beer company and why we've, built things on our own is because that same energy of, someone else isn't necessarily going to get my vision. Someone else isn't necessarily going to walk up and say, here's your menu of these 5 things that you could do. We're going to have to make up our own menu.
If we think about the world of business or people like Steve Jobs, right, they don't see that product out there. They think, what could we do that people might ultimately want? Thinking ahead almost.
There's an urgency to figure out how to innovate, how to see what's not there. Because we've actually seen the coming of age of the internet and then the hope that this would actually be a renaissance. And it's been, once again, it's a renaissance in one way. The content's out there and there's so much amazing possibilities. But once again, our industry has handed over the control of the music and content to some of the same dinosaurs. We've got Jimmy Iovine running Apple Music. We've got Leroy Cohen running YouTube. We've got the guys that killed the old industry running the new one, and then we've handed our rights to technology companies like Spotify, who are pillaging. They're using our content to sell gum at the at the grocery store aisle.
Dude, we'd be well off if they were selling it for the price of gum.
I mean, actually, somebody might actually be able to make a living, especially up and coming artists.
The urgency, I feel it's a serious sense of urgency, thinking about the fact that my 15-year-old who loves music, or Zach's 9-year-old that might be a drummer in 10 years that for real want to be in a band or want to do something, what is the industry going to look like for them? Because and so seeing the iPad before the iPad is needed, I think is really, really, really needed now from artists. Not just from the business guy, but from artists that realize that they are the innovators. They are Steve Jobs.
There's also the issue of risk and being willing to take a risk. And early in your career, you guys were willing to say, starting our own label is an option. So even though some things haven't changed in the industry, sometimes for the individual artists, things don't change because they don't change. So talk to us about that evolution for you as well.
Well, I think it's important to juxtapose the risk of starting a label with the risk you face as a band with an apathetic label, right? So in 2003, we started 3CG Records after releasing 2 albums with a major. Our second album, they had a huge merger, and really, we saw almost everyone who worked with us get fired and replaced.
During the making of the second record.
During the making and release of the second record. And what we discovered sort of in a way that was undeniable on the third album was they were willing to wait till whenever, spending our money that we had to recoup, watching our fans go become fans of other bands, and not having any plan for connecting and building and growing, and essentially that long tail, which is really all that you have really with a career, is the long tail. And so the risk was really apathy or money, right? We had enough success that we all had, been smart with money, that we could go, okay, let's pool and let's hire people to work for us, and let's build a new, endeavor. Or let's watch it fade away and go into nothing, go into sort of the expectation, right? The expectation is that a lot of bands, or most bands, I think, have one big album and then they disappear. And that's really often the product of a system that is designed to let bands disappear. And we just said, we're not going to go quietly into the night. We're going to take risks the way when we started as a band and we were too young to play in bars, and our peers were playing soccer games on the weekend and we were driving to Wichita to play a gig. Or,
yeah, exactly.
We were doing things that were out of the ordinary, taking social risks, right? And so financial risk is not that much scarier than that, and so we continue.
Ed Sheeran, come on.
As far as artists that are just crushing the world, I think Ed Sheeran is amazing to see out there, carrying a stadium with one guitar and a voice. There's a lot of not so great stuff that's at the top of the charts, in any era.
Go ahead.
No, but at the top of the charts,
I'll tell you what, I hate when...
No, but I would say that considering that, the very top stuff, and that's hitting the world right now. I think as an artist, that is probably the biggest biggest artist in the world. It's awesome to see him carrying that weight with a guitar. And I think for young musicians, young fans, I'm just glad that there's a guy holding a guitar. Even though he's he's doing it his own way. I think that's a really cool thing for people to see that organic. His voice, his guitar, and we know Ed, have known him for a while, and just an awesome guy. So we're admirers of the craft, and that range that covers all kinds of styles and all generations. I mean, you're always a fan of somebody that has mastered.
We did choose to invest in. We never bought Ferraris. We never, bought yachts or crazy stuff. We had success, but we literally looked at, one another and said, whether we wait for this other massive corporation to kind of crumble and call us when we can make an album, or we leave and start taking that kind of risk on the front end. I really genuinely believe in the model we've kind of been the guinea pigs for, which is that artists in the future really are the center of their business. The idea of these old models where an artist goes and they say, I'm going to sign a deal to this big corporation. They're going to kind of take a piece of everything, which now they really are doing, 360 deals, which is what happens with bands, and then they're going to lock me up for 20 years. The thing is, most now corporations, they're too afraid to really take the risk on artists anyway. Artists should be controlling their brand and then making partnerships as they go through each cycle. And that's really what we've done. The only difference with us is we've sort of staffed up a little bit. And when you talk about launching a beer, it's not about trying to become this multinational corporation. It's really about being a brand, like a smart brand that says, look, we know who our fans are. We love our fans. They love what we do. How do we love these things? How do we build a community?
What kept you grounded?
Well, I think we had probably wise parents who said, you know what? We're going to live in Oklahoma, and we're going to stay living in Oklahoma, where there aren't any paparazzi, and there aren't, news outlets are going to chase you down, and for the most part, you can live a generally normal life, and then go off and do your job in LA, and go off and do your job around the world and play concerts. And
I will say, we've been doing that since we were little kids. I was 6 when we started singing together, and you sometimes take for granted the fact that we were born into a family of people who were pretty creative and pretty musical, and it came naturally. We've done, and that's not actually normal to feel very creatively comfortable. It is
for most people,
whether you come at it naturally or whether you somehow acquire it through school or
But the work ethic, the difference is, and we joke about this because since we started off, people know us for having long hair, and so there's always, hey, you guys have things like, you have great hair, things that you can't actually take any responsibility for. Thanks, genes. But the thing you can do is work at becoming a craftsman, right? And so that's the part you do kind of decide, okay, I made a decision to do this and to try and build this.
Yeah. Let me ask you, for parents that are out there that have a kid that wants to make it in the music business, what's your advice? Because I know it's tough. I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy to make it, and then it's not as glamorous as it looks.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, for one, I think despite all of the Cribs episodes on MTV back in the day and all those kind of things, being a musician, especially being a traveling touring musician, which is what you have to do to make a living, is actually surprisingly blue collar work. It's a very day in, day out, wake up early, go to bed late, do it again.
If you get into doing it because you believe you deserve the spotlight, or you believe you're destined to be the biggest star in the world, and the chances of that happening is almost none.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But if you get into it because you have an aspiration to sort of heal people through writing songs about life and through sharing sort of your experience with other people that you care about, then you can almost not fail at that. It's almost impossible to fail at doing that.
You're going to find somebody that it resonates
right.
with.
Right, and it resonates with you. I mean, really, your choice to do music. I mean, we would do music to a crowd of 10 or a crowd of 10,000.